Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Krista and Ed Show. We are so excited today. We have Jeremy Carter here with us.
Hello.
All the way from the state of Alabama.
Right.
So a little bit about Jeremy. He is an entrepreneur and a podcaster himself. He is the co-owner of 3 BreakOut escape game locations in the state of Alabama. And he loves looking for new business opportunities. Sounds like a real entrepreneur to me. Born out of a desire, I'm not reading this, to lead. He's
totally fine. I would be too.
We're learning, okay? Sorry. Born out of a desire to lead better, he started his podcast, Bold Future. So you guys should check that out as well. I've listened to a few episodes and it is awesome, where he shares interviews with great leaders and insights from his personal business experience. He currently lives in Birmingham, Alabama, with his wife and 2 dogs. So welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's good to be here, and it's good to be on the other side of it. Great.
Awesome. Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Yeah. Well, I grew up here in Birmingham, Alabama. I've been here my entire life, 35 years, and went to school here, college here, did everything here. And then at some point I got the entrepreneurial bug, and I don't know when that was. It was well after college. I was selling commercial real estate and kind of decided at some point, maybe I could do my own thing. I didn't know what that was. And then 2015, I actually started a couple businesses. They didn't really work out. 2015 rolls around, and a friend of mine that I had gone to college with texted me and asked me if I wanted to open an escape game with him. And I said, sure. And then I said, what is that? Because I had no idea what that actually was or what that meant. And so essentially our business is we put people in a room for an hour. They're solving clues, puzzles, codes to try to find their way out. It's great for groups of family and friends. It's good for corporate team building. We kind of get both groups at varying times. But that first location in 2015 in Birmingham went really well. So we opened one in Mobile, Alabama, and then Montgomery, Alabama. So we've got these 3 together, and we've been running those the last 3 years. And it's a strange business. A lot of people in a room for money, but it's what we do. It's gone really well, and it's been really fun to operate over these last few years.
Wow.
That sounds really cool. We actually have never done anything like that.
No.
Yeah, you should do one.
Yeah.
It helps with team building and family.
Does it help with husband and wife building? No,
it can. It depends on how you go about it. I mean, we see people of all spectrums, people that work really well together and people who may not ever talk to each other again. I'm not sure what it is, but for the most part, yeah, that's what we do. It is to force people into a situation where they're totally have no idea. I mean, if you've done one before, you know what to expect, but you don't really know anything. And it's rare that you're in your life when you don't really know exactly what's happening. I mean, life comes at us in different circumstances, but for the most part, your day-to-day routine is kind of the same most of the time.
Yes.
This is no social media. You're not on your phone. You're like having to talk with other humans, and you have to problem solve together. And
that sounds horrible.
All those things, and you see different personalities come out. Some people are super dominant and take over, and other people just stand in the back and occasionally chime in with brilliance. So it's all over the place. But typically, it's great for groups because it just forces them to do something together.
Yeah. I think that'd be good for us. Her and I can be at the dinner table having an argument via text. So, like, take the phones away. Here you go. Work together to get through it. I actually thought that it was more like something kind of scary or something,
Our themes are designed to be, some of them are kind of edgy. One's island escape. So there is nothing really scary about that. But then one is a kidnapping theme where you've been kidnapped. You're handcuffed and blindfolded to begin the game. But safety is always preeminent. So you can get out at any time. You can leave. But that's certainly a top priority. But for the most part, it's family friendly and good for everyone.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool. I mean, a couple of years ago was involved with a company that did zombie apocalypse events.
Yeah.
And you were locked in with a couple hundred people
At night.
At night. In fact, we went to one where, and literally you get a bottle of water and a can opener and you run for your life. And it's 18 hours. What's that?
Yeah. So we don't do that, but it's a similar concept.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it must really force you to kind of critically think and trying to put these puzzles together and then having to work through it. That'd be awesome. So obviously it sounds like you are a true entrepreneur, because it was like somebody said, hey, I got this idea. And you're like, yeah, okay, let's, do it and then run with it. And,
Yeah.
And so then when did you kind of pivot and really start to kind of explore other areas, like obviously with your podcast, where there's obviously this interest in mind melding with people that want to grow businesses and do other things and excel and
Yeah. Well, I read a ton of books, and books are awesome. I love them. I continue to read, but I realized that those are limited in what you can learn from them because it's a one-sided conversation. And so it started off, I would go to people in our community here who are business leaders. Like, I would just look up the top CEO in the city and just email them, asking them if I could come and talk to them. And when you're young and dumb enough, for some reason they say yes. I don't know why, but I would get in there and then I would have conversations.
No, I'm just kidding.
I would have conversations that were like, man, I wish I could share these with my friends because they would like to do this. We can't all go and like whatever. So after enough of those meetings and coffee meetings and lunch meetings with people asking them how to run their companies or how they did this or that, that's when I thought, okay, I'll record these, I'll put some structure around it, and we'll really make it a thing. Because fundamentally for me, I just wanted to know how to lead better. That was the thing, is I knew that this fundamental belief that leadership changes everything. If you change the leader out with a different person, or if you make that person a better leader, everything in that whole circle gets better, whether it's company, church, doesn't matter. And so for me, the business of it was like, well, the dollars and cents you can figure out, but it's really hard to develop people as better leaders. And if I'm not fulfilling my own potential, there's no way anyone underneath me is going to. And so it started, I guess 3 years ago, trying to figure out what are these people doing that helps them to lead their organizations, because some of them were, like massive public companies, and others were just like a local company that they're doing well. They don't have any desire to grow any, huge business, but everyone had something to share. And so that's where it all came from. It's just a desire, knowing my own weaknesses, and then saying, okay, well, how am I going to get better at this? And I'll just go talk to people.
Yeah, you know what? I love that. And I'm really realizing, we've only done a handful of interviews so far, the power of it as well. Yeah. What you just talked about. And I've gotten so many insights from everybody I've spoken to, and I've already picked some up from you. And then realizing too that I'm also helping other people on the other side is such a cool feeling, especially when it wasn't even really intentional, right? So just opening that conversation, and because at the end of the day, a lot of the struggles and the positives and things that business owners or have learned are it's good to share it.
Yes.
I also think
it can be a lonely world too sometimes, entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And I think that there's a point where you transition really from being an entrepreneur to being a leader. They're not necessarily the same thing, in the sense that you can grow a business, and I guess I could speak to that a bit myself, where you grow a business really quickly and get it quite large, and then you really can struggle on the leadership side of it and being able to kind of navigate the transition to a next level, right?
Yeah.
That's a critical point right there. So to be able to kind of look up what other people that are entrepreneurs or business owners or whatever niche they're in, and see how they, transformed into a leader, because it's really a different skill sets to some degree. So
it is. To me, it's totally different, and it requires you to dig so much deeper if you're going to lead well. Like you can hire a bunch of people, but if you don't lead them, and it requires so much more, like just emotional, intestinal fortitude to take yourself to that level. Yeah. It's so much more rewarding. I think it's definitely more profitable, but it's just the right way to lead a team, in my opinion, is when you really care, when you've developed yourself to a point, and it never stops, but you've taken the time, and then you can translate that for them. Like that's a huge win.
Absolutely.
I think I've also learned too, the people that we've been interviewing, a lot of them, it's like they're constantly learning. And something my wife and I had a debate about, I don't know, probably 2 years ago. She's like, you know, you got to keep learning. And literally at night, she's listening to a podcast. During the day, whenever you have time, consuming some information. And I think I went through an arc where I was like, okay, I know it all. Not that I didn't really consciously think that, but subconsciously I'm like, okay, I think I've got this navigated. And that's, I think, when you are in trouble, right?
You know? I totally agree.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, because I left my corporate job and stayed home, and I was now playing with this, you know, online business and stuff, I got to see things that he didn't necessarily, because he was caught in the grind, right? And that's when I really went, whoa, wait a minute. There's a whole new way and a better way and a more efficient way to do stuff. And, you know, I was like, oh my God, I need to help you. Like, you need to know these things. I'm assuming, and he's, you know, just doing what
I get home, and then the babies, and then you're tired, and then she's like excited because she's been consuming stuff all day, and she's like, hey, hear about this concept. And then sometimes now it's like, hey, I've already told you too much. Like, you need, you know, I'm like, oh, okay.
Now you read this book.
Yeah, you read this. Yeah, exactly. And then even cascading that down to people that you know, and that doesn't always translate, where you're like, hey, this is really, you know, thought-provoking and can be life-changing, and you should, they're like, oh, okay, I'll get to it, you know, and you're like, really? Okay. But, you know, that's kind of life. So you've interviewed quite a few people then, whether it's through your podcast or through just your kind of journey. Would there be, you know, a really good juicy tip that you see as a theme or something that you could offer people, our listeners, like if they're a business owner and they're maybe, or they're just starting, or they've got a large organization and they're trying to, you know, grow and become more of a good leader? Would you have a good tip for?
I mean, I think if I were to synthesize all of the stuff, like all the different lessons and all the different things, like it all core, like at the core level, it all still comes down to just caring for other people. And it's not necessarily like the big sexy message that's promoted about achievement and success and all that. But for me, the amount that you care for your people is really all that matters, because everything flows from that. If you don't care about other people, if you don't care about their success more than you care about your own, if you don't care about what happens to them or even what's happening to them personally, even if they're employees and it's just, you know, that they're struggling or having a tough time, like that's to me the things that I've seen from all the really great people or the great leaders, is that they care deeply about people. And I don't think there's any replacement for that. There's no tech for that. There's no like time saver for that. Like it just requires getting down and dirty with humans and living life with them. And that's not like a typical business message, but that is what I see constantly, is people who, we can talk about passion all day, but if it's not directed at some level towards benefiting someone else, it's pretty useless. And so for me, that's what it all comes down to, is just to care for other humans. And it doesn't take away automation, doesn't take away scale, doesn't take away any of that stuff. But for your people, the people on your team, you have to care about them immensely, or it just doesn't work.
Oh my God, I want to work for you now.
Yeah, and I mean, that could take effort, especially a lot of people that are entrepreneurs can be egocentric. It's like, I gotta do this,
or you let the people get away from you. And I think, I don't know if that's even done intentionally, but it does happen. And I agree with you. When I worked in my corporate job, I mean, I worked for a big company, so there was lots of, you know, diversity, right? And I was in leadership positions, so I ran teams of people, and that was one thing that I feel like set me apart from some of the other leaders. I was very focused on the people, right? And it was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm not going to make them tell me how long they went to the bathroom. Like if they're going to the bathroom every hour, it's probably because they hate their goddamn job. Like, you know what I mean? Or maybe they ate something. I don't know.
No, I know what you're saying. I totally agree with that.
You know, so I love that. And it does, you know, like, and especially when you're in business, like you gotta lead them towards your vision, and you're gonna get so much more, you know, out of your employees as well if they want to be there and they're happy and you're taking care of them. So I totally get that. I have a question. Sorry,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think it's kind of a personal crusade to create places where people. So the three things I look for in a business were just a profitable business where teammates love to work and customers love to buy, if it has those three things, which is really simple and incredibly hard to create, it's good, because I feel like there's so many just terrible places that people work. I've had really terrible jobs. I'm sure you guys have had that, and it's totally unnecessary. And there's no reason. It doesn't mean you'll love every aspect of your job, or that at times they don't complain. They complain. That happens.
Normal, yeah.
But to be able to provide that for people, even for us, it's a lot of part-time folks. Some of them are full-time, but it makes all the difference. And if you're not doing it for that, why do this if it's not going to benefit other people? It's completely worthless to me. So
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so I wanted to ask before I forget, because I always want to know about the spouse, your wife.
Yeah.
Is she involved in the business at all?
Not at all. No, she has her own business. She has a wedding dress store here in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
And so her level of involvement is next to nothing. She's mostly focused on her own business. So we do have a decent amount of conversation about how to handle different things. Like that's probably where she is. Like we're both pretty supportive on the back end of things.
Yeah.
But as far as like day to day, I don't really know how her operations work. She doesn't really know how mine work. And that seemed to be a really good balance for us. Is I know how the business works, and like yesterday she was asking about hiring. We've hired dozens of people here. She only has a few people at a time that work for her. So we're talking through that process. Or now have an issue with a teammate, and she'll help guide me through like, oh, she's probably actually feeling this way when she said that kind of stuff. As far as like the actual business itself, we keep them pretty separate.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we did for a long time, like other than, talking back and forth, like you said, about certain things or helping with different ideas and whatnot. But, and now we're kind of changing the game a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, for you, it's interesting because there is a parallel between the two businesses. So they're separate and they're different niches really, but there are some reoccurring when it's, you have human beings involved and interacting and are working for you. So yeah, that must be kind of cool. I bet you there's some interesting conversations. Well, you didn't handle that right, whatever, right?
We definitely have that. And I think.
No, I meant in general, right?
No, you're right. I mean, it fundamentally, because it's all people, like you're just changing out variables. You're not really, the emotions are all the same. The situations are different maybe, but I mean, it's humans, and like that doesn't really change no matter what business you're in.
Yeah.
So do you guys like upsell each other? Like do you guys have like stagettes and stag parties and stuff at your business if they buy a dress from her?
And if you're not, then she gets a percentage of the idea.
No, I like that. We have not. We actually, man, that's a pretty good idea.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that's not bad at all. I'll ask her about that.
Yeah,
we've actually kept it so separate that we haven't gotten there. So.
Right, somebody's getting married, they got to go in, they get a dress, and it's like, hey.
I like that.
It would be a really fun thing to do.
That would. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so next question. I want to know, what kind of dogs do you have?
I have a Great Dane Lab mix, and I have a miniature Schnoodle.
Oh, wow.
110, 115 pounds, and one's 15 pounds. So.
Oh my gosh.
They're very different personalities, but yeah, those are our guys right now.
And the little one's the boss, right?
He's the we call him the court jester. He's just there to entertain. Like he doesn't care what's going on. Most little dogs are the boss, but this guy is like just whatever. I don't care. I'm just here to have fun. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So you have 3 franchises. Are they franchises? Is that what they would be?
No, they're partnerships. So we operate a lot like a franchise, but we didn't go down that route. So we partnered together. We use the same stuff, same material, same website, same rooms, but a partnership.
Cool.
Cool.
Is there plans to open more?
Not for me. I think these 3 are the only 3 that I'm going to have.
Yeah.
As a group of partners, there's about 47 of them around the country, and they'll probably add more to their mix. But as far as I'm concerned, these 3 are good. We'll stick with these.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of go from there.
Cool.
Gotcha. Cool. So we have a question for you. Drum roll.
All right, let's hear it.
Right. We want to know, from all your experience, everything you've done, what would you say is your superpower?
Superpower. I thought about this.
Feel like I said I feel like I need some suspenseful music to.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. That did help me. No, I thought about this question and
it's a hard question.
I struggled with it because I wasn't entirely sure. I think maybe what I do best with my team as far as like, I don't know, what I'm really good at breaking really big, complicated things down into small pieces. And so it helps a lot day to day when it's like, oh, we got all these problems. And we really don't. We just have like this, let's just handle this one thing, and it kind of dominoes for the rest of them. And so I guess just because of enough experience seeing complex situations that if you really just break them down to their smallest parts, they're really manageable. That's what I've been able to bring to our team the most, is like just simplifying things and constantly looking for those things. And it comes in handy a lot, because the more you do it, the more you realize like we've got all these huge tasks that we can take and break down to little, just chunk it down into small pieces. And I think, I mean, some of it came from Tony Robbins, just things that I've done, seen from him as far as that goes. But that's probably that. And I guess the other weird thing is just being able to remember like I remember faces like permanently. And so that comes in really handy, because I always know the person and where I met them. I don't always remember their name, but it's come in handy a lot. And it's helped with networking and building out things. So I can like reference a ton of people here locally. And that has been really nice, because my wife doesn't remember anybody. And so we're so polar opposite there. Yes.
Yeah. Those are both really good superpowers to have.
Yeah, I guess they're superpower. It's just, I don't know. They're things that I know that I have to do constantly, or that I do just without thinking.
Like naturally comes to you, right?
I would say Krista is like that in the sense that, okay, I'm going to just break this down and simplify it and be able to communicate it.
In my head, and maybe this isn't a great example, maybe I eat too much Kraft dinner, but like in my head, if I was to give you a visual, whenever there's a problem or something complex, I hate complicated things. Like I'm just like, it needs to be simple. And if it's not, then like, whatever, I'm going to simplify it. Right. But it's like, I always think of a strainer, right? And I'm just really good at just straining out all the noise and the other stuff, and like focusing on what's the problem and how are we going to solve it. I keep talking about my corporate job. It's been years, but it just, this is what it reminds me of. Okay. Like Excel spreadsheets. I remember like there was this girl that everyone was like, oh my God, you're so smart. And like nobody would ever like touch her spreadsheets, and they would always like get her to do these formulas. And then when she was gone, I'm like, I have to figure this stuff out. And it was like, I spent more time trying to figure out why this was so complicated. I'm like, we do not have to have a formula this long. It actually could be like this and give the same result. And it was like, oh my God, right? Like just,
She'll, and we have this dynamic. She'll be like, so you did what? And so tell me, and I'll be like, the deflectors are up, right? Because it's like, I created a system. And then what happens is over a couple of years, that system is actually not relevant any longer. And staff are doing it, and I might not even see that they're doing it. And it's like, okay, we print this paper and we put it here. And she'll be like, well, why do you print the paper? Why do you need to, why do you have the paper copy and then when you have the digital copier? It's funny. So, so a lot of people do not have that superpower, that skill where they can kind of go, okay, let's break this down. A lot of people go, okay, well, it's complicated. And they'll in fact just assume the process without even questioning it, So interesting.
Yeah, you see that a lot. It's human nature to do that. And I think, like I had the other day, someone here on the staff was like, we need a system for this thing. I was like, no, you need to send a text to that person and just ask them that question to be done with it. We don't have a system. We're fine without a system for this. And other times, you clearly have to lay out something more complicated and really, systematize things. But you're right. I mean, sometimes we just do systems just to have them. It's like, I don't even know why that's here anymore. What do we do that for?
I think I've heard Krista even say, it's like, we're printing these papers. Where do they go? I don't know. I put them in a book, and
does anyone ever look at them? No.
And then you open up the door, and there's all.
Wow, this is very cool. Interesting. But in saying that, I do suck at systems because I realize, like, especially when you do have a team and you want to hand things off, sometimes those are important to do, right?
Yeah.
the simple things. So yeah.
And so do you have a question maybe for us that you want to give us, or a curveball? You've interviewed lots of people, so I was like, oh, he's gonna make us sweat.
No, I don't think it's a curveball. I think when I read about what you guys were doing, though my wife and I are not working in a business together, it's still very similar. We're both entrepreneurial, and so it's easy for those things to become all-consuming all the time, and to never put them away, to never not be selling, like on the couch, responding to an email. So for you guys, have you gotten to a place where you've been able to put things away or step away, and what have you done to help make that happen? Any particular methods, because we don't do great at that. So it's just like constant and always and never ending. And so I don't know if you had any more luck than I have.
Well, I'm going to say that we're at a space right now where we really are trying to be cognizant of that. Because we did have our own separate things for a long time, and, which is important to have too. We also know that now that we're going to be working together, it's just as important to have those separate things, but also to bond together as a family. So, I mean, we have children, which is a very easy distraction for some things. But I know, like, for me, it's like things like going for a walk, right? And being intentional about it.
Right.
And not, walking in silence, right? And maybe just not even talking about the business sometimes, or that kind of stuff. And I always kind of joke and say, like, let's pretend we just, like, what's the word? Let's pretend we just met, right?
Yeah.
Because then it forces you to go back to this place where you're like, okay, like, do you want to,
place you haven't been in a long time.
Yeah. So it's just like, that's how I switch my brain to do that, to be like, okay, you know what, as much as I'm angry or frustrated, and most of the time it has nothing to do with him, it's just the buildup of other things that happen in the day.
Totally.
So I would say that is something really small that you can do. I mean, obviously there's the dating thing. For us, it's busy, like, to go away and have dinner it doesn't always work, but sometimes we're having dinner too, if it's just us, and it's like, okay, let's pretend we're on, like, our first date, and just talk about some of those times. I think it helps.
I think Tony Robbins talks about that, about relations, and if you break up, or people break up, and it's like, if you could actually pre-frame your brain and go back to when you first met, treated that other person like that, and that's not easy to do. We're definitely not perfect.
And you've changed too, like, since you first met. Like, I was way less opinionated. Like, I was like, oh yeah. We always joke, like, because in the car, I used to be like, if someone cut him off, I'd be like, hey, like, I'd get mad now. Right now I'm mad at him, like, what are you doing?
Why did you let that guy cut you off?
Like, you always used to have my back in the car. I'm like,
we honestly had this conversation last week. It's like, you know what you just did? And I'm like, yes. You should back me up, right? No.
No, it's totally. We change in different ways that we had not planned on. It's like, this is who I am now. I'm trying to become better, but some ways I am, and some ways I'm not. But this is who I am, and so it's tough to find that place where you're, like, accepting, and then also like, oh wait, I probably need to change in that area.
Well, and I think the longer you're in a relationship, the more you grow together, and you do change. Right. So a lot happens, but I mean, I don't know. Try that. Hey, pretend we just met, and not don't do some of the nice stuff too. Like, doesn't always have to be in the bedroom type stuff, because that won't work for.
No, I understand.
No,
that's a great insight. I think stepping back, like going back to where you originally, that spark came from, is probably a great idea.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you're lucky. You have you're both entrepreneurs, so there's a lot of relatable, things that are, that you can relate to each other, and the byproduct is not turning it off.
Right.
Other people, it's, somebody's an entrepreneur and the other person's, like, at home and they have no interest whatsoever.
Right.
Like, whatever.
So what, do you have an answer?
Do I have an answer to what he asked?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Let's
You
hear it.
answered for me.
No.
No,
No,
I
I'm
mean,
kidding.
I think we have 4 kids, and so I feel like I'm forced to stop having attention in other areas where I'm like, hey, our little guy came up yesterday. He's like, you play with me? You play with me? Brings the cars, play with me. Like he's on me to, to spend some time. So I think,
it's funny because now that we're starting to work together, I'm excited because I feel like our relationship is going to get stronger because we're going to be able to spend more time together that we haven't for so long, which is kind of weird, but yeah.
And the interesting thing for us
I think
is,
he froze maybe.
Oh, did it freeze?
Or he's just sitting really still. Maybe we made him nervous. No, I'm just
kidding. Are you there? Something happened. Okay, well.
That's okay.
Oh, it's I don't know.
It's okay. We can.
Jeremy, you there?
Yeah, he's right there. I can see him. He just froze.
Maybe are we having a staring contest?
Maybe he's.
Oh, he cut in and out. So.
Maybe he's in character.
I think we're buying time here to try to. Anyways, I think we lost him. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. Let's just. Yeah. We did.
We did lose him.
Okay. Is it something I said? I'm so sorry, Jeremy.
Jeremy, we want to thank you for coming on our show and sharing some insights, and we really appreciate it. And we want to thank everybody for listening and watching us. So thank you.
It was so awesome. Yay! Yay!